So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second event of our Parks Alliance Love Your Park and Rec Center Day of Action. We're celebrating Love Your Park Week, talking about advocacy, talking about the proposed budget, and looking forward to a conversation with Kathryn Ott Lovell, who is the Commissioner for Parks and Recreation. Joining me is our campaign director, Lula Defersha. Hi, Lula.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. What did you think of our conversation with our city council members earlier?
You know, it's great to hear a couple of council members who are just really passionate about Parks and Rec. And so, you know, I'm happy to be represented by them.
Oh, yes, the passion that they have and the experience, I think for me, I'm learning a lot about them as well. Just the passion they have about their community and their background work. And also I enjoyed watching their town halls, the weekly town halls they host on their Facebook page, social media page. It speaks a lot. So I was grateful that they were able to join us today.
So Lula, this is the last event that I'm in today, but it's not the last event for you today. So what else is going on today?
No, so we have 3:30 p.m. We have Student versus City Council Scrabble Challenge hosted by the After School Activity Partnership. So this is exciting. I think we'll be live tweeting, if I'm not mistaken. Steve, give me just a heads up. I can see you. Okay, yes, I'm correct. And then 5 o'clock, we're back to do our read along with here we go, with one of our Parks and Recreation leader. We're super excited about. And then 7 o'clock, we are doing Parks and Rec online trivia that our intern Jack created, which I think we got to, wait, is that it? Yes. We got to play as a staff just to test it out, and it was super fun. So don't miss out. Please join us. So we have a very packed day of different sorts of engagement. So super excited. And if you just, want to know the time, we did share it in our Facebook page. So you can look at the different activities and times that we have coming up.
And then we are launching a sign-on letter today, which we're going to deliver on the day of the budget testimony for Parks and Rec. So if you go to philaparks.org, we're asking any organizations or clubs that do anything that has to do with Parks and Rec to sign on to our sign-on letter, which talks about the essential services of Parks and Rec during and in our recovery from COVID. So let's talk some more about how it is that Parks and Rec is responding to COVID and what the budget looks like, and let's bring in our guest.
Yes. Also, please feel free. Hello. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
We're so excited to have you. Just to let you know, if you just joined us, please feel free to leave questions in the comment section. Also, we'll share my phone number if you want anonymously text us questions as well for Kathryn. But welcome. We're so grateful for you.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
So, Kathryn, how you doing?
I'm hanging in, Alex. How are you doing?
Yeah, I think I'm hanging in. I'm not trying to run a city agency. What's that like in COVID-19?
Yeah, it's been, of course, incredibly challenging. Not nearly as challenging as some of our, partners in healthcare and in law enforcement and emergency response have it. But I'd say the first few weeks of this was just trying to figure out how to run a system. How to run the base level of operations in a system that was essentially shut down. Having to shut down a system our size is really no easy task. And then trying to figure out how we still provide those essential services, that we need to continue to provide to residents. And, so I think we were pretty much hunkered down for the first few weeks. And over the last couple of weeks, we've been more focused on what's next and what does reopening and recovery look like. And I'll be honest, I like that much more than the first half of this. It's been an incredible challenge, but we have just a wonderful team at Parks and Rec of our deputy commissioners and managers and frontline staff who, this is when they shine, in times of crisis. And, when things get really challenging, it's just their absolute time to shine. So it's been wonderful to be able to see them in action like this.
Yeah, you're not somebody that likes to sort of sit still or just try and get by, right? I mean, you at the Fairmont Park Conservancy, you had ambitious ideas for what that could be, and you brought that to Parks and Rec, and so what is that like COVID-19 then? I mean, there's a challenge that's been placed in front of you. What do you think are some of the important things that Parks and Rec needs to do to meet this moment?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't like to sit still, and I hate working from home. So I'll be honest about that. I hate it. I hate it. I love being with my family and seeing my kids more. That's been a tremendous gift, and I've definitely picked up some domestic skills that I've never ever even realized were inside of me, like cooking. But it's been an incredible challenge not to be able to just see people every day and work alongside our folks every day, because we're such a forward-facing department, so that's been incredibly challenging. I have been lucky enough to get out to see some of our sites that are operating as food pantries, or our staff that are supporting the food access at the warehouse, but it's just it's a really it's hard for all of us not to be out at a time, even a season, like this Love Your Park week is usually my favorite week of the year, and getting to go to literally 100 parks and rec centers over the course of a week and, hang out and have fun with great partners like you guys and our park friends groups and the Conservancy. It's heartbreaking. There's just so much loss that has happened over the last few weeks in such a short period of time. I mean, 8 weeks is a blink, and so for us at Philly Parks and Rec, it's been, as I said, the first few weeks trying to figure out how we maintain our base level of operations, but then and support where we're needed in the city. And now we're full steam ahead trying to figure out what the summer will look like in Philly, and what beyond will look like, and what kind of changes we need to put in place to continue to provide the programs and amenities that we provide for so many Philadelphians.
I mean, as we know, things are changing and shifting almost every hour, it seems like, day by day. And with everything that's going on, I'm just curious, especially with the weather getting nice soon, or already has gotten nicer. Like, have you seen the increased use of parks by people? And what does that even look like during the summertime as people are trying to find relief from just ability to get out of the house and enjoy their local parks?
Yeah, we've seen a huge increase in the number of people using public space. I mean, that's not just here in Philly, but nationally. I'm on a call weekly with other city park leaders from around the country, which has been a tremendous gift, just to hear what's happening and to compare what's happening here with what's happening in cities across the country. But we've definitely seen a huge uptick in usage. And I think, that, again, is a testament to what parks and public space and recreation means to people. It's definitely seen as, an essential service that is provided to us as humans and as residents of our city. It is, but it's not without its challenges. I mean, as much as we want people to take care of themselves physically and mentally, and we know that being connected to the outdoors and being able to spend some time outside of your house is really critical for good physical and mental health. We also have to be mindful that it's not business as usual. We are at a stay-at-home order. We are still in the thick of this crisis in our city and in our country. And there are protocols that very smart, science people have told us to follow, and we need to follow those protocols. So, we put up over 6,000 signs, both, regular laminated signs and lawn signs, telling people what was closed, what was open, and also reminding people to social distance while they're out and about. For the most part, I think people have really respected that and are doing their part. Not everybody's perfect, and not every site is perfect, but for the most part, I think people understand what needs to happen, and they're behaving as such. We definitely have seen a huge interest around people accessing our trails and our spaces. And then, we have 11 sites that are open as food pantries. And we've seen a huge influx of individuals who are coming to access, that critical need as well. And we're so happy to be able to be a part of the food access response. And it's something, to be honest, that I really think we were one of the first city departments to jump in when asked. Deputy Mayor Figueroa is running this incredible operation along with our Deputy Managing Director, Joanna Otero Cruz, this incredible operation of setting up a food access response in the matter of days, building a food warehouse and making sure all of the protocols and conditions that need to be met to set up this massive food warehouse, and with the great partners at Share and Fill Abundance. And, for our department, we've been delegating staff and assigning staff to work, to do that work, to pack the boxes and work the lines and to receive the shipments and hand them out to folks. And I think for many of our folks, they feel really, they feel really honored to be a part of that and to be able to be a part of that response.
I can speak to that a little bit personally, because I just started showing up to that warehouse because I needed to be able to find a place to volunteer and get out of the house and be part of a team. And then there's all these Parks and Rec people around, and then one of the people that's doing the supplying is George Matisic, who's the former, my predecessor is executive director of the Philadelphia Parks Alliance, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is like who. We knew that Parks and Rec provided 350,000 meals every summer. Well, I have to say, actually, that's the thing I had to learn as the executive director of the Parks Alliance, right? This thing that you don't really think about, that how important a part of the mission is to be providing food, and how you guys have really stepped up providing that service. And
yeah, it's definitely not something new for us. We've been in the food service business for over 50 years. Play Streets, which provides meals to kids in the summer, has been happening for over 50 years. And our year round, we run a year-round meal program where we distribute over 2 million meals to kids. And we're the second largest meal provider in the city next to the school district. So it definitely is a hidden service that we provide. I don't think it's hidden any longer, but something that, we're proud to be able to provide. And, I think as far as our staff goes, I was really grateful to hear Council Member Thomas talk about on your earlier interview with him and Councilwoman Gautier, talk about, how impressed he's been with Parks and Recreation staff, and how, it's so obvious that this is not a job for these folks. This is a vocation in so many ways, that these individuals come into this work because they are public servants, and whether that means they are, as he said, cleaning a rec center or prepping it for the next day's activities, or, caring for children who are hurt, or whether they are, packing boxes and getting them in the hands of people in need during a crisis. This is what these folks are called to do. And, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and, they are truly unsung heroes. And I know you guys have done a great job helping us shine a light on them. And it's just something that I feel really strongly we need to be able to continue to do.
So this summer, the need for those meals is going to be bigger than it's ever been. And the challenges to providing it are going to be new and a little bit unpredictable. So How are you guys getting ready for that?
Yeah. So, the city's food response team with Deputy Mayor Figueroa and, as I mentioned, Deputy Managing Director Otero Cruz, they've been working really hard to make sure that we don't miss a beat, and that, kids are going to continue to be fed. Families are going to continue to be supported in any way we can in the city. Parks and Rec will continue to remain a part of that team. We will perhaps step up our game because, we do want to pick back up our individual meal distribution at recreation centers this summer, as well as our Play Streets program, which distributes meals to 350 residential streets around the city and tens of thousands of kids. So we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like yet. We are preparing for a summer. We're preparing for a summer. This is the summer at Parks and Rec is our Super Bowl season. It's something that we prepare all year for. The schools close and we open. And, that's what our typical summer season is like. This season is dramatically different, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what this is going to look like for us and what, how exactly we're going to be able to provide those services. But we are absolutely preparing for a summer. So we're preparing for summer camps. We're really hopeful we'll be able to open our summer camps at some level at some point this summer. We're preparing, of course, for our meal program. We're preparing for our play streets, and applications are open for folks to apply for play streets. If they'd like to host one on their block, you can go to our website and get information about that. So we're getting our spray grounds up and running. We're dewinterizing our spray grounds so that they can be available if and when it is appropriate for them to be available. And, we're very grateful to all of our colleagues at the Emergency Operations Center and also at the health department, who we're working lockstep with to get real-time information about what we can do and when we can do it. So we're just in a bit of a wait and see, but certainly planning.
As we are preparing, like you were saying, for our summer and trying to navigate the different changes that are currently occurring, and obviously with the budget proposal that was recently announced, just curious what cuts have been made for Parks and Recreation, and how does that affect our summer programming or staffing and maintenance? What does that even look like?
Yeah. So, the mayor was really clear in his budget presentation, his re-budget presentation, or whatever you call it. It's a really, really tough time fiscally for the city. We have this massive hole that needs to be filled, over $600 million, due to the loss of revenue that has happened as a result of the COVID crisis. And, it's never easy to cut things out of your budget, especially a budget like ours at Parks and Rec. We run pretty lean as an operation and as a department, and really do as much as we can with the money we receive from the general fund, because that is how we receive our budget, which is different from other park systems around the country that have a dedicated funding source. Many other park systems in the country have a dedicated funding source. We don't here in Philly, so we are reliant completely on the general fund for our budget. And I don't envy the mayor and the managing director and the deputy mayors who had to make really, really difficult decisions, when faced with this fiscal crisis. And so each of us as commissioners were given the task to have to think about what we could cut back in our budgets and what that would look like for fiscal year 21, which starts in July. And so we spent time with our deputy commissioners and our managers looking at that and, coming up with various scenarios, so that we could take a 20% cut like other city departments, which for our department amounts to about $13 million. So it's not finalized yet. We're still talking to the budget office, and I know council is still needs to, review the budget, and we have some hearings coming up on that. But cuts are never easy. They're never easy. But when you're faced at a time of crisis like this that the city is faced in, it takes, just incredible tenacity and fortitude to be able to look and see what you can still do for less. And that's what we're prepared to do.
Right.
So one of the things that has been cut is the pool season. And so talk a little bit about why that is. That's not just because of money, right?
Yeah, the pool season, it's like my worst nightmare as Parks and Rec commissioner to say pools won't open this summer. It's awful. It's an awful situation we're in. But it is, I keep saying it's a three-legged stool, the reasoning behind why pools can't open. The first reason is that logistically, we are just so behind. We lost 8 weeks and counting, 9 weeks now, where we would be hiring and training lifeguards. Lifeguards that come to us from the communities where our pools are, and they're not people who are trained to be lifeguards. So they sign up to be a lifeguard, and then we train them, we certify them throughout our indoor pools. And we haven't been able to do that. You can't safely, train someone during a crisis like this and a stay-at-home order. So we have not been able to recruit, train, or certified lifeguards. And then logistically to get 70 pools open, and, we have more pools than most major cities. Chicago is the only major city that has as many pools as we do. And to get a system like ours up and running takes months of time for our skilled trades folks to prep those pools. And again, we've lost that critical time. Those are the same guys that have been supporting the emergency efforts in the city. They were supporting the testing site. They were taking down the basketball rims. They're, receiving some of the deliveries of food. So, they haven't been out there prepping pools. So there's the huge logistical issue around opening a pool season. You can't just flip a switch and open 70 pools in the city of Philadelphia. You can't flip a switch and open 20 pools in the city of Philadelphia. There's massive amount of preparation and planning that has to go into that. The second is, certainly the health protocols. We just don't know at this point where we will be as a city. In the next few weeks or the next month, and if opening pools will be safe. There's a lot of different folks who say, well, the CDC says, you can open pools safely and chlorine kills the virus. But, those same folks, I want them to know that we, on any hot day, have about 200 kids lined up outside of Kelly Pool, next to the Please Touch Museum in West Fairmount Park, waiting to get in that pool. And, the struggle it would be to have hundreds of kids have to socially distance while they're in line to get in our pool. It's and to think about how we keep kids safe on pool decks, with distancing and what kind of staffing we would need, to manage the social distancing that would be required, is just, hard to wrap our head around. So the second piece is certainly the health protocols. And then the third is the budget. And, it is, again, one season that hopefully the city will, get back on its feet over the next couple of years, and we won't have to make hard decisions like this. But, if it was just the budget, it would be one conversation, but it's not. It's multiple factors that are forcing us not to have a pool season this year.
Yeah. And a few questions that came up during our last question and answers was just about the summer in general. When this shutdown started, it was, here's a week, 2 weeks, and then it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks, and it continues to happen, rightfully so, as we try to figure out coronavirus in general. And a lot of parents have questions about it. Are we going to have summer camp this summer? And what does that even look like with social distancing?
I have that same question. My kids attend East Pass Young summer camp every year, and I'm like, where are my kids going this summer? All of our deputy commissioners who have kids, our kids attend Park and Rec summer camps, and we're all in the same boat. At this point, as I said, we're planning, for summer camps, but we are lockstep with the health department, who is lockstep with the state and federal officials around what we're able to do. So we're not going to be able to open recreation centers until it's safe to do that. We can't hold camps unless we can open recreation centers. If and when we can open recreation centers and we can host camps in recreation centers, those camps are going to look very different. It is not going to be, traditionally our summer camps are amazing. They're highly, highly affordable. The kids go on average 2 trips a week, field trips, they go a day to the pool. It's a little chaotic. My kids camp in East Passing, it's a little chaotic, they're running between rooms and enjoying each other. And that's what we love about it. That's not going to happen in the new normal post-COVID. Summer camp will have to be structured significantly differently. Field trips will change or be canceled, so important for parents to know that we're working on it. We're absolutely working on it. We hope to have more information soon. As soon as we know, we will let folks know, what the status is. But if and when we can open recreation centers and start summer camps, they're going to look very, very differently than they have in the past for this summer, if and when.
Yeah.
So here's the conundrum that I see, right? For summer programs, you've got to enforce standards that nobody is used to. That is a more staff-intensive activity. You've got to do budget cuts. And so you're cutting seasonal staff, right? So that seems to be remarkably difficult.
Yeah, it just forces you to be as creative and innovative as possible. And as you said in your previous, conversation with the council people, I think both council people said, you have to look to partnerships. We're really grateful to partners in city government that have helped us identify other types of funding through which we can hire some folks through workforce funding. So we're looking at those options. Is there a way to access other, types of funding to hire support staff for the summer? We're going to maximize as much as we can our seasonal force that we are able to hire. But we're going to be as creative as we can. So we can continue to provide more with less. I mean, that's the reality that we're faced with, and we're going to do everything we can to stay the course.
Yeah, having been in some of the conversations with those partners, one of the things that we see as key is those partnerships require partners on the other side, right? That the staff have to be there, and you've already have an understaffed department, and now we're dealing with new challenges, and you're talking about having to cut staff like that. In some ways, it's like this to see those partner groups be able to put in that investment of volunteer hours and outside funded hours that are so essential to making Parks and Rec work. We have to keep that infrastructure, that staffing infrastructure on the agency side in order to be able to have that partnership.
Yeah. So, while we know that we'll have to reduce seasonal staff, and mind you, the bulk of our seasonals will come from not hiring people around pools. The pool seasonal numbers around 800 people between lifeguards and maintenance folks. So that's the bulk of the seasonals that will not be hired this summer. But our full-time staff, our full-time complement of staff is staying. So we are not planning at this point to eliminate any full-time staff. So we're, and to be honest, very grateful to the administration for giving us the autonomy to be able to make some of those decisions. And while I know the loss of an inability to hire as many seasonals as we hire is going to be a hardship for us, I'm really confident that, we've got the right people on the bus in terms of our existing staff, our program staff and our maintenance and operations staff, as we started at the beginning of our conversation, are truly extraordinary public servants who, when the going gets tough, this is what they're made for, so, and that's never been more evident to me than in the last few weeks of this crisis. So I'm really confident that we're going to, be able to support our partners, with our staff, thank God. But to be honest, we're asking more of partners too. And I had the opportunity to have a conversation with the Park Friends groups at our Park Friend Network meeting, I guess last week, and reiterated with all of them that we are going to see we are not going to be able to hire as many seasonals as we have in the past to support the maintenance of our neighborhood parks, and we're going to be looking to our Park Friends networks for this year at least to help us fill that void, as they always do and they always have. And there's no other city in the country that has a network of volunteer groups in Park Friends groups and advisory councils like Philadelphia Parks and Rec. I go all over the country and talk to other cities, and they're like, how do you get these volunteers? How this network of volunteers, thousands of people who care so deeply and passionately about their parks and their rec centers, and don't do this, for any kind of payment. Their 401k is in heaven on this work, and they, have been doing this for decades. We're going to have to lean on them, and we're going to ask them to continue and to step up in ways that they perhaps haven't had to as much. And it's a little painful to think about asking them to do more, but at the same time, I know they'll do it. I know it because they're the same groups we asked to donate masks, a few weeks back, and you guys helped with this when we knew we were running out of PPE for our frontline staff. And we did a mask campaign with the Conservancy and PHS, and I was the delivery site, my front porch, and I had a bin out there, and it was like the best thing. I mean, literally, it was just because we couldn't think of other places to put the bins. So my front porch became a bin site, and every night these people would come, wrapped up in their mask, and they drop, 20, 30, 40, 50 homemade masks into the bin, and then I'd wash them and pack them up to go back out to the field. And the notes that came with them, from Barkin Park, from Cliveden Park, from Vernon Park, just friends of the Wissahickon, thank you Parks and Rec for what you're doing. Stay safe. They're heroes and they're champions. And this is when they, they do their thing, in times of crisis. So I feel like, and I might be overly optimistic. I feel like crisis is not, this is not going to last forever. I hope the budget cuts aren't going to last forever. And at some point they'll be able to be restored. I think that this is a response the city needs to something that is just unprecedented at this time. So I do feel like it's a temporary need that needs to be filled over the next year. And there's no city better positioned for that than Philadelphia with the people who live here.
Speaking of volunteers, a lot of the questions that we received from our viewers has been, how could we help as a community? Is there a fundraising effort that we could do to support our local parks and recreation centers? And what does that even look like if we're able to help?
Yeah. I think, so every recreation center, for the most part, at least 100 of them have advisory councils. And those advisory councils, that's part of their role, is to help generate revenue for that site through fundraisers and through programs. So I would definitely tell folks to be in touch with their advisory councils. I tell them to be in touch with the Parks Alliance and the Fairmount Park Conservancy and their local park friends groups, if they want to make donations or to volunteer. It's time, talent, and treasure. If you don't have the treasure right now, there are so many people out of work, and you can't give financially, then, when the time is right and when we're able to do this, get out there and help to clean your park, get involved in your rec center, become a volunteer. Where we have staffing shortages, we're going to be turning even more to volunteers and asking people to step in. So this is a time when we can continue to build the next generation of park friends, and of recreation advisory councils. Some of these folks who have been running these advisory councils and running these park friends groups, they're tired, and they're just like waiting, like, who's next? Batter up, and now's a really great time for folks who, feel called to make a difference in their community and their city to step up and join those groups.
The way that particularly, everybody that's volunteers, they show up to a site, right? And they do stuff at that site. And those parks, you can still pick up trash or, do what have you, sort of have some initiative. But at a rec center, it's about programs that people are involved in and delivering, mostly to children, but sometimes to senior citizens. What we're experiencing is that there's a lot of those folks who they can do that kind of volunteering, trying to figure out the more virtual programming, virtual volunteering, and not only do we have to figure that, we have this chunk of time now, hopefully we have some time over the summer when you can actually physically be there, but what the health experts are telling us is we're likely to open and then close and then open, right? We can go through these periods of time. There's a new way of doing things, and technology wise, a need for tools, folks to be able to do that. And then there's also this piece about having kids who've been through quarantine and are going to show up stir crazy at the best, and having undergone, some form of trauma with that, but perhaps also for some kids, home is not a safe place. Yeah. And one of the first places they're going to be is sort of at a rec center. So there's all these sort of challenges, both in terms of how you provide the programming and that the needs have gone up. How do we take on that challenge?
Yeah. You're right. You're right on every account, Alex. And, this is unprecedented. There's no playbook. We've all heard this a million times. But I do believe that it's really hard when you're in the middle of a storm to think about what life's going to be like afterwards. If you have a really bad stomach virus, I'm like the worst person with the stomach virus because I hate to throw up. But like when you're in the thick of that stomach virus, do you know what I mean? And you're just like, it's never going to end and I'm going to be like this forever. I feel like we're in that right now, where we're sort of surrounded by doom and gloom and we feel like it's never going to end. This too shall pass. This will end. It's not going to be immediate and we will be forever changed by it. But, we have to have a long game view on this, and we need to be prepared for all of the things that you talked about, but there's no better time than to prepare for those things than right now. We need to be thinking about those things. We need to be working towards those things. And, because you're absolutely right. I mean, kids will be forever changed by this, physically, psychologically, spiritually, people won't be the same. And we need to have a response. We need to be ready for that. I feel just a tremendous amount of confidence and optimism. And I don't know if before I was in this role, if I would have felt the same way, but I've had the experience of working with the 700 employees in our department and the thousands of Park Friends groups. And to be honest, though there's no better team of folks that I'd rather have at my side, to go in to address some of the issues that you talked about. I feel like we are poised for this. We can do this, we're going to need to work together. We're going to need to be collaborative. We're going to need to check our egos and our, prejudices at the door. And, we have to do better. I won't get into politics, but, we have to make things right at a national level. And we got to keep our eye on that ball too, because there's a huge, impact of that has happened to us here that, we have to take responsibility for and figure out how we work to fix that. But I do think we'll be forever changed. But I'm fully confident that we're going to persevere because, generations before us have faced far worse, and have persevered, and we're better for it.
So one thing that we would like to offer up is, so we did a Tools for Heroes mini grant program earlier this spring, and we're really happy to be able to do that and have some of your staff on our selection committee. And I think that we learned a lot, and I think your staff learned some too. And what we're thinking about for the summer is, okay, so what are the tools that we need in order to be able to take on this new challenge? And whether that's around technology or whether that's kind of around training and around maybe trying to help bring in some social work partners. So we're thinking about another, for this summer, doing another kind of Tools for Heroes round. And maybe that's about giving out grants, or maybe that's just about being able to get a hold of some resources and be able to share those. But we really want to help you and your department to meet that challenge.
We would love that. And we're so grateful, Alex, and Lula, for everything you guys have done, to support us and to support our employees who, just, again, I think are, just not recognized in ways that I wish we did a better job of. I take full responsibility for not, doing enough to recognize and support our great employees. And you guys have been great partners in that. So we're just really grateful for all the work that you guys have done. And Alex, for your great new leadership at the Alliance has been really refreshing and wonderful. So we're really grateful to you guys.
I agree. And I apologize for looking down. I'm getting a lot of questions via text message. So just heads up. And I might be backpedaling a little bit with some of the questions, Kathryn, so apologize about that as well. People are just curious about if we don't have our normal summer camp this summer, what are some alternative options that we're going to have? Like, what does summer camp look like without the traditional camps? If you have an answer for that.
Yeah. So, I know we're going to be distributing meals. That's something that we really feel that we need to continue to do. So, we're also really thinking about ways that we can enhance our Play Streets program, and we're talking to different partners and thinking about ways that we can meet kids where they are. If kids can't get to rec centers, how do we get to kids in a safe and healthy way? And we know that Play Streets has been around for, of course, a very long time. It has an existing infrastructure, and looking for ways that we can enhance and support that. But again, we know this summer is just going to look very different. We don't have all the answers. We are so grateful to people for their patience, and understanding. But really important for folks to know that we're thinking about this, and we are, every single day we have the absolute right people working on figuring out how to move forward. It's a precarious time right now. And we're also talking, as I said, to cities all over the country. So this weekly call that I have with cities, city park leaders, like I said, has been a tremendous gift to hear what Chicago's doing in New York and LA and New Orleans and Baltimore, and, just to have that feedback and bounce ideas off of them and figure out how they're navigating, has been a tremendous help. Mm. Misery loves company.
True. And we do have another question about how, data shows how COVID has impacted the African-American community and the low-income community. And as budget cuts, and Alex asked this to our members, city council members earlier, as budget cuts are appearing and is going to continue to affect the low-income communities, how do we navigate through this challenging times as we are being hit from different directions, from budget cuts to COVID to lack of resources that we already have experienced prior to that? It's a lot of different things occurring at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I can say that there was a crystal clear mandate. Could not have been more clear from Mayor Kenny, from Rob Dubow, the finance director, from Brian Abernathy, our managing director, that, we have to have, it is mandated that there is a lens of equity, and specifically racial equity, on all the decisions that we make, and especially decisions in terms of budget reduction. So we certainly had that lens on when we were looking at trying to make our decisions about what we could reduce in our budget. And it is our intent at Parks and Rec to continue to provide and prioritize, the services that we offer in communities most in need, and specifically in communities of color. Mm-hmm. And so we have a great strategic plan that we are going to continue to implement that will help us think about how we realign our staffing over the next few years, how we staff our system, and really look at supporting more underserved communities through more programs, more resources, more staff, even at a time of reduction in scarcity. And we're not going to look back on that. We're going to continue to push that forward. And we made the reductions with that in mind.
Okay.
So on the one hand, scarcity can make it harder to try and do new things. On the other hand, disruption sometimes gives you sort of an opportunity. So you guys have been talking about community service areas and having a more flexible programming model. You're being asked to do a lot of things at the same time. What's your outlook on that?
Yeah, we're pushing forward with that, Alex. That's a critical part of our strategic plan. It's called Realigning as We Rebuild, and it's a goal of our strategic plan. And the way that we've been staffing our recreation centers is the same way we've been staffing them since the 1950s, since they were built, based on the size of a center as opposed to the needs of a community. So this goal of our strategic plan instead, flips that and says, let's staff our recreation centers based on the needs of that neighborhood, and let's staff the neighborhood and not just the facility. And so we've created a whole data set of looking and have basically scored all of our centers and have created what we're calling community service areas. And that's basically just a cluster of centers that and resources and amenities in each community and we'll look to assign staffing based on the score around equity, around health indicators, around crime. We'll look to provide additional resources in communities that score the highest for those needs. We'll be doing that over the next year. And we'll continue to do that even in light of the budget cuts. And I think it's really timely to do that in light of our budget reductions, because, to be able to reprioritize our resources in, specifically looking at communities that need us the most is front and center for us now more than ever.
And another goal that you had in the budget proposal before COVID
Yeah, we were set to get a budget increase, if you remember. It was such a happy time.
Yeah.
We were going to get our first programmatic budget increase in a long time. And I mean, March 1st, I was one happy commissioner. I got to tell you, I was psyched. Those were the good days.
And one of those concerns was that last year you had 14 Parks and Rec staff who were assaulted on the job. And so as we're talking about the need to create safe spaces, that need is just stronger than it ever has been. So now you're going to take that on without that staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it all goes back to how we realign our staffing to ensure that recreation leaders aren't alone in centers. I think a lot of those incidents that you talked about were unfortunately where rec leaders were by themselves at facilities, and we do have far too many of our centers where people work alone, and we know people are safer when they're with others. And so that's something with the realignment that we're going to be looking to do is to, the safety of our employees has to be front and center for us. And, I know, we've also been working really closely with the Philadelphia Police Department to get their support, increased support for our staff as well. So it's front of mind for us, and we will not be taking any steps back on that.
So does that mean that there will be adjustments to hours, or that some centers might not? Will every center be open for the same hours? I mean, even if I don't know, there's so many levels of uncertainty about what the restrictions are. But what do you think?
We're not there yet. It's something that, again, when we're ready to dig a little deeper into that, that's something that we'll be working with advisory councils on and our staff on. I think hours will adjust based on our budget reductions, as well as our new staffing alignment. But we will, again, be looking to make sure that we're not reducing the services and the programs that we're offering as best we can. I do think the hours of recreation centers, and I think, the mayor was clear about that in his budget presentation. Over the next year, during this because of our budget reductions, hours of recreation centers will be less than what we're used to seeing them. We are not closing any recreation centers, but we will need to reduce the hours at recreation centers. What that exactly looks like, we don't know yet.
And as you're thinking about that and working through that, you have the need scores that also play a role in that decision making?
Correct. Yeah, we have the need. Correct. We have the data scores, for all of our assets, around crime and equity scores, poverty scores, et cetera, so that we can help inform those decisions. But I honestly, the hours are going to be adjusted throughout our system, and hopefully, if our, at some point we come out of this crisis and our budget's able to be restored to some level, or hopefully a full level, we can go back to a full implementation of, the realignment of our staffing. But over the next year, we know that we will see a reduction in hours. We will work and look to do that as equally as possible.
So we are getting a lot of questions via text message. If you don't mind me, Steve, if you can pull up maybe 2 or 3 questions. Okay. Are you able? Okay. It says seasonal staffs are some of the most valuable and least able to rebound from a job loss. Is there anything that can be done to keep them on the payroll this year?
So I'm really grateful to our mayor who has kept our seasonal employees. We've had about 400 seasonal employees who have been kept on the payroll since the crisis started over the last 9 weeks. I think, that's really an incredible testament to the administration to be able to keep those seasonals employed. In terms of the seasonals that we won't be hiring in 21, it's, there certainly the pool seasonals. If we have other opportunities, we will be, offering them to people who have come to us year to year as pool employees. We may have other partners that we might be able to direct them to, like the YMCA that's going to be looking for lifeguards and other folks. And again, even though we won't be able to offer them positions, we will look to provide as many resources as we can to them. And again, this is a time when our federal government needs to step up, with continued resources for people who, won't be able to have the same employment opportunities that they had. And this is, not everything can be solved at the local municipal level. And we have to hold other representatives and officials and all the way up to the big, we have to hold them accountable. And, we have just a couple of weeks for a pretty significant election and another election after that. And we need to make sure that we do our part to have our voices heard. City government can't do everything ourselves. We absolutely can't. And we need to be clear about that.
Great.
It's a lot of questions. I see them and I'm like, I see a lot of friends too. I want to give a shout out to Siobhan Lindsay, one of my old coworkers. I miss her dearly. This is fun.
Well, they're coming. If you could just go back to the question, Steve. I'm not sure if you could see it, Kathryn. I don't want to keep reading them over.
Yeah, I see Megan Gallagher's asking a question. My dear friend Megan Gallagher Thompson, her husband AJ, great park advocates in Fishtown, Parks and Rec advocates. She's asking about volunteer groups.
Sorry about that, the confusion. So we have questions on the screen. Okay. I guess I'll just read.
Oh, you have that question. Okay, I want to get to Megan's question too. It's Tim Horan. He's my friend too. These are not planted questions. I didn't talk to any of these people in advance, you guys. But hey, Tim. No, now you put up Megan's. Okay, now let's do Tim's first. That's very nice. He's saying they do. So Tim runs a great social sports organization, and they're great support to us and helping us maintain some of our fields. So thank you, Tim.
We can go to Megan's question if that's
great. So Megan's asking whether volunteers can help staff the rec centers. And it's a very good question. These volunteer youth sports organizations already do an incredible amount of work for us in terms of like Tim's group helping us to maintain our sites. I'm sure it's a good question. We'd have to look into that, to be honest. I know there probably would be some labor implications, but thank you, Megan, for that suggestion. We'll definitely look into that. And thank you to her and AJ for all they do.
Oh, here we go. How can we register for summer lunch program?
So you can go on our website, philly.gov/parks and rec, and also there will be more information if they follow us on social media.
Awesome. We'll put the link in the comment section just in case.
Right.
I was on a call a week or two ago, and there was an interesting idea from the San Francisco Park Foundation, where this is one where it's sort of like, if you have the money, right?
Be nice, San Fran.
So the challenge of trying to enforce social distancing within parks and that's a difficult thing to try and ask volunteers to do. Sort of more of an enforcement piece. And so what they're experimenting with is having people from the hospitality industry who are sort of already have this skill set to be these safety ambassadors in parks, where they're educating and encouraging the social distancing, and that because tourism is kaput, and then they just would transition back to that, as that would open up. And I think that's an example of some creative thinking about how it is that we might need to figure out how you have those safety ambassadors out there.
Yeah, there have been a lot of cities that are doing this. Miami just, they train like 1,000 volunteers to become social distance ambassadors. And it's definitely something we've been thinking about here, and something we can certainly have conversations with other city officials about. It's not something that we pulled the trigger on, but I do like the idea of getting volunteers from communities to become social distancing ambassadors in lieu of law enforcement. I think that's a big reason why some of the cities have done that, and I think it's very smart. And that's mostly volunteers, though. I don't think we're in a position, what San Francisco is talking about is actually paying former hospitality workers. I love that idea. I just don't know if Philly's in a position to do that. I would love to. My husband
would love to do.
in the hospitality industry, and again, that industry is just it's heartbreaking what's happening there right now. So, any creative ideas like that we can do to support those guys is really important too.
Steve, if we can bring up some of the questions. It says many seasonal workers are people of color and make much less than their full-time counterparts. Are they part of the equity equation?
Yeah, it's a valid point. Very valid. He or she, whoever's making that comment, is absolutely correct. Many of our seasonal workers are people of color, and they do make less than their full-time counterparts. Some of them, again, I wish I apologize. My husband was on kid duty, so we'll talk after this. This is Johanna, everyone. An important call. So just sit down and we'll talk. So sorry, guys.
It's time for
working mom. Who doesn't want a commissioner with kids? Back to the equity issue. We've done, a tremendous amount of work at Parks and Rec to ensure that our seasonal workers have access to full-time jobs within the city. We will continue to do that through our workforce programs and through, other professional development programs to get seasonals full-time work. But that is the answer, is to make sure that seasonals have a pathway to permanent employment within the department or within the city. Our seasonal workers are some of the best employees we have, and some of them have been working for us for decades. So I'm really conscious of the impact that this has, on those employees, and we want to do everything we can to support them and also to rehire them in the future.
We have another question from
texting my husband right now.
Yeah.
we love having her here, but you may not.
She can stay. She is more than welcome to stay.
You guys are going to think I planted all of this, right?
Nope, it's perfect timing. We all working from home, so we get it. So we have another question. It says, what will the department do to ensure that the centers in more urban areas are provided the same attention as the ones in more well-to-do areas?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about that, but it's certainly just a huge priority for us. Again, through this realignment that we're proposing and that we're working on, which will take some time to roll out. We're not right now how our centers are staffed and programmed is based on the size of a center. So if you're in a community that that only has small centers, you only have a certain amount of staff, or doesn't have any centers, and therefore no program. So we're looking to, what we've done is we've mapped our entire system, and we've thrown on layers on the map around equity and poverty and crime and racial equity. And we're looking at how we can use that data to inform how we staff and program neighborhoods in the city around parks and recreation, as opposed to just the size of the facility, which is traditionally how we've done it. So it's something that we're working towards and we're aware of. And again, in the Kenney administration, it's a mandate for us to look at everything through a lens of racial equity. And we've worked really hard to do that, from how we hire our full-time staff. We recently, basically completely turned around how we hire entry-level recreation leaders, and completely redid how we test for that position, completely redid how we interview and recruit for that position. And I'm really thrilled to say that we increased people of color on our eligible recreation leader list by 60% in 1 year. So it's something that we're really, really committed to. We know that the staff of our department need to reflect the communities that we're serving. That also goes for the types of programs and services that we're offering as well.
Awesome.
Kathryn, I think that is such important work, and you guys have been putting so much effort into that.
Civil service is no joke, Alex. It's no joke.
And
it's not easy to change civil service.
And COVID is a wrench that is going to, that makes implementing everything harder, including trying to make progress on that. I think, and you are also trying to, you're trying to change civil service, and you're also working with the reputation of the agency, over time. I think that trying to have, if we can find ways to show more of this process that you guys have gone through and presenting some of the data that you've been working with, particularly because I think we're going to have to ask people to have some more patience at a time when we don't have patience right?
Yeah.
The urgency is greater than it's ever been. So, however we can help to try and further that education and conversation to show the progress that you guys are making, and maybe also to show the areas where we can be honest about the areas where you still need to make progress.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we would love that.
Steve, do we have any questions that are coming in? Again, I apologize for looking down. I'm checking my phone for questions. This is from our comment section.
Hey, Anthony. Go Sharks. Anthony's a great youth football coach for the South Philly Sharks, and also a member of our advisory council at VER. So thank you for chiming in, Anthony. Of course, his question is, will there be any changes with respect to rebuild? Because VER is our first rebuild site. So Anthony wants to know if he's still going to get his building and his field built. That's a question that should be really directed to the rebuild team, but I can tell you, to my knowledge, that rebuild is moving forward as planned. And I'm still we're still working on projects every day, and so as far as I know, there's not going to be as significant of an impact to rebuild as there have been to some of the other city agencies that are funded through the general fund. Rebuild, as you guys know, is funded in part through bonds that are funded in part by the beverage tax, and also through a lot of private fundraising, including an incredible commitment from the William Penn Foundation. So hopefully rebuild will stay the course. It is a shining light in so much hardship. So we will really look to continue that work at hopefully a much quicker pace too, to get some things done, and to bring some great just joy and confidence back into communities through those projects.
We've been chatting for the past hour. We have maybe like 2-3 questions. We appreciate you taking time for the past hour to chat with us. And maybe you can also let the audience know the best way to ask these questions moving forward and contact you. But Steve, if we could pull up maybe 2 more questions. You talked about this earlier. If you want to just cover this.
Yeah, sure. So again, we don't have the answers right now for that. I hope it's not a recipe for disaster, Mr. Drayton. But we are a little more optimistic about it, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that if and when we can open, we will keep kids safe. And provide as many resources as we can to children and their families this summer. But we're planning every day around that. I see Jean McGarry. Hi, Jean. I see her question. Right now, the PYN program, which is our summer work ready program, each year we employ anywhere between 1,000 and 1,300 young people. We are hoping to continue that program. We are processing kids virtually, which is sort of amazing for us, since normally it is not virtual. You're waiting in line for a long time to get your kid processed. But it is our absolute hope to continue that program where we are processing kids, and hope to have them assigned to different locations throughout the summer, either hopefully supporting our summer camps as they always do, or assigned to other locations. But we absolutely want to, I know the administration is very much committed to keeping kids working this summer, as are we at Parks and Rec.
So, Kathryn, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. It is you have such optimism and confidence in being able to do the good work, and that's not because you don't see the difficulty of the work in front of you, but because you just love taking it on, and just really appreciate having that kind of leadership at Parks and Rec.
Well, I appreciate that, Alex, and I feel honored every single day to do this job. It is an absolute honor every single day, and I'm, incredibly grateful to my bosses, the managing director, Brian Abernathy, who's been just extraordinary throughout this crisis, and our mayor, Jim Kenney, who, gave me this opportunity and is just an honor to work for every day. And, and lastly, I I walked into a department 4 years ago that was already staffed by 700 of the greatest people, you know, in the city of Philadelphia. And they're really the ones doing this work. And they do it incredibly well with amazing heart and passion. And, you know, grateful to them, and certainly grateful to partners like you guys as well. So thank you for doing this. Thanks for continuing to shine a light on what we do. And thank you to everybody who participated today, and happy Love Your Park Week. Get out there and love your park from your front step.
Well,
and stay away from each other. Love your park virtually.
Virtually, social distancing. We're grateful for
I got my
you.
shirt on.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I love the color.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying thank you for the work that you are doing, being transparent as we are just navigating through the system. And we're grateful for you from Philadelphia Parks Alliance for taking time for a whole hour answering questions.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun, guys. I'm sorry about Joe.
No.
We can do your own Q&A next time. I would have brushed her hair too. Anyway, what are you gonna do? Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
So